another aspect of feminism that is very negative for men, which I will only briefly touch on because a lot of the men in this room are young, and therefore you consider yourselves invincible, I'm sure. If you get cancer as you age, the medical establishment's kowtowing to feminism will probably finish you off. Women's cancer, like breast cancer, has a very similar mortality rate to prostate cancer. But although women's cancers and breast cancer stuff are widely publicized, you can't go anywhere without seeing those pink ribbons in your face, a Breitbart analysis of NPR's website showed, and this is typical, I mean, this is a typical public sector broadcaster, horribly skewed towards one side of the sex divide. There are 2.8 times as many stories about female cancers as male cancers, so they get all of the press. Now, breast cancer in particular gets a lot of press, mainly because it involved tits. So, no, I say something that both men and women can get behind, or in front of, or under. But this is the sort of split you're likely to see. But it is not the publicity that will kill you. It is the funding gap, and the funding gap is quite extraordinary. So if you look at the annual deaths between breast cancer and prostate cancer, they're about the same, not too different. But then you go over here and you look at the funding per case of breast cancer versus prostate cancer. And you see how much sexier women's cancers are. Now, on the one hand, sure, we should be a compassionate and loving society that takes care of our women folk. And on the one hand, maybe it's right that we spend more on women's cancers. But it isn't fair to say, you know, in this era of equality where women bark at you for opening the door, they do, because they're so confused. They get so many messages about how it's appropriate to behave or not behave. It isn't fair to say that there is a patriarchy, a structural set of injustices that are keeping women down and prioritizing men, when every man's actual life experience shows exactly the opposite. 97% of workplace fatalities are male, because men do all the difficult, dirty, dangerous jobs. If you want to go into a STEM subject when you graduate, you have a 2-to-1 advantage just being a woman, because everyone's desperate to hire women. And there's this. And all sorts of other things. You know, men pay way more into the tax system, women take way more out. So if there's a patriarchy, it's not doing a very good job. It isn't doing a very good job for men at all. Now, these are real gender gaps, not the illusory fake gender gaps that you're encouraged to believe in at college. There is no wage gap after you leave. The campus rape culture epidemic is a complete myth.